I think it's really when you start to go down that rabbit hole, it's recognizing that this is a reflection of how you're feeling about yourself and just pausing and digging a little deeper into that. Where does this come from? Why
Yeah.
is that? And I think when you can start to operate from that place, then when those feelings or thoughts or worrying, you start to let that go because you start to let that, but you're not going to be able to let that go until you start to let that go for yourself.
Right. Hey everyone, welcome back to Pulling Threads. Today I'm so excited. We have our guest, Amber Shaw. Amber is a business coach for women who have gone through or going through divorce, helping teach them a coaching business. And I'm going to let Amber tell us the most about her background. Typically, I go through a big rundown, but yours is so interesting, Amber. And I'm just so excited to have you here to talk through some of your journey and then what you're offering people. It's somewhat unique, I think. I love this for you and for my listeners because so many of the people that I'm serving right now are considering a divorce, divorcing, or they've just finished.
Mm.
And one of, I think, women's biggest concerns is what do I do now? I was an attorney, then a stay at home mom, and then I got divorced. And so I had to reinvent myself. Turns out it's been the best reinvention that I could have possibly chosen.
Mm.
And you're really helping women with that process. I love it. So, if you don't mind telling us just a little bit about your journey, how you got here and where you came from.
Yes, I love that. And thank you so much for just the kind words. And I'm so excited to be here, Leslie, honestly. So yeah, I mean, it is, I think, an interesting niche that I found myself in and the demographic that I serve. God, if you would have asked me years ago, 10 years ago, or, that if I would be in this position, I absolutely couldn't even imagine. And so, yeah, like a lot of coaches, I think my desire and my journey to become a coach really was rooted in my experience. So
Mhm.
I was somebody who was in corporate sales for about 20 years and in sales and marketing, had a very successful career. And I was married and had two amazing kids, the white
Wonderful.
picket fence. I'm doing that in air quotes because from the outside looking in, my life seemed perfect. My ex-husband, we've been friends since I was 7 years old and just best friends.
Wow.
And we were married for about 10 years, together for 15. And right when I was getting ready to turn 40, my life just completely imploded. My marriage, and that began with my marriage falling apart. And I think it was probably the combination of like getting ready to turn 40, this happening, and also at the same time, it was like the perfect storm was brewing because at the same time, I was also really battling being very dissatisfied in my job. I'd been
Mm.
doing sales for so long and in the same industry for so long, I could do it with my freaking eyes closed. And felt like I was meant for more. I knew that I had purpose outside of working in commercial printing, but I felt very trapped because just I was making a lot of money and all the things.
Right.
And so when my life completely just blew up, after, of course, I sat in that for a while, but after the dust settled a little bit, it was like, okay, well, now what? Now
Right.
what? Right. And I realized that I had two choices. I could either sit and kind of wallow in this and let this define me as being now starting over at 40 years old with two kids and being divorced. And I'm sure, I know if you've gone through divorce, obviously, right, that feeling
Yep.
of just how the hell did I get here, right?
Right.
And or I could use this as an opportunity to say, okay, well, now
Mm.
what do I want this next chapter of my life to look like? Because whether or not I liked it or not, this is where I was.
Yeah.
And so I really began this kind of this journey of like just trying to figure out what I wanted for my life. And as a part of that exploration and as a part of that growth, I really became a career change. And it started for me as a desire to do a side hustle. I wanted to do a side hustle. Number one, I kind of wanted to dip my toe. I was so fascinated by the online space. For
Mm.
me, I'd always been in sales and had autonomy and freedom in my job. And so I love the idea of even taking that a step further of like being able to do something in the online space. But I also wanted to bring in some extra extra money. But the other part of it is I wanted to distract myself, because for
Mm,
me, having something that I can pour my heart into and be passionate about and feel good about was really what I was feeling that I needed. So I made the decision to become a coach at that time. For me, I wasn't ready to even, because I was in the middle of it, I was not ready to even go anywhere near my divorce story. So I kind of went to what was passionate, and still what I'm very passionate about is in the health and wellness industry. So my first company in the online space was in the health and wellness industry. And really, just I did not know what I was doing. I want to be really clear on this. And for those of you listening, sometimes I think it's really easy to look at some of these coaches and be like, oh, that's easy for you. Da, da, da. Well, no,
right.
y'all. I had never even taken a selfie of myself at that point. I was
Wow.
terrified of social media, had no idea what I was doing. But my desire to make it happen, I think, far exceeded my fears. And so I figured it out. I figured it out to as much as I could, which really I didn't figure anything out until I hired a mentor. And I hired a mentor, and that's really when everything exploded for me. And so my first online business took off within the first year. I'd hit the six-figure mark, and I
Wow.
continued to grow and scale it. But I was working full-time job. I was working a full-time job at the same time because I wasn't ready to let go of the security. And then I finally got to the point where I decided that I needed to just let the sales job go. That I had faith that this was my path, and I just dove first, head first into this business and serving women. I was helping women over 40 in the fat loss space, and that worked. I mean, then that was a great, very successful career and company and all of that. But I would say probably I started getting the itch in like 20 and the 2024, I think, where I was like, actually, you know what? It was probably, now that I'm saying this out loud, it was probably more like 2023, where I really just felt like I'd kind of done all I wanted to do in the health and wellness space, and I was ready to
Right.
go deeper. I didn't know
Yeah.
what it looked like, but I was ready to really start tying in my divorce story. And so fast forward, and let me just say this was also not me deciding like willy nilly one day I was going to wake up and be like, I'm going to be a business coach. I
Right.
had been working with a mentor, my business coach, Jill Coleman, for like, now at this point, I've been working with her for 5 years. She had told me even 3 years ago, Amber, one day you're going to be a business coach like that. I can see it for you. This is what you're meant to do. And so it was the combination of being ready to share my story,
Hmm.
and also just kind of to really go a different direction. And so at the beginning of 2024, I made a massive pivot. I completely basically shut down the health and wellness business, and I started over again. And I just started authentically sharing and connecting with women who had gone through divorce. And I built and scaled another company to six figures within that first year. And now just continuing to grow and scale and really serve women who are wanting to use their expertise and their experience to help others in the form of coaching. And really, it's coaching the previous version of myself. And I want to say
Yeah.
one last thing is that I don't throw out there that I scaled both of them to six figures to brag or to flaunt. I purposely
Yeah.
share that information because I want moms out there, especially divorced moms, to know that anything is freaking possible. I'm going to tell you right now, if I could do that, not once, but twice, if you have the right support and guidance and a plan, it is freaking possible. And so I think that's a really important piece of it.
Oh, I think it's hugely important. And it's something I want people to hear.
Yeah.
A lot of people come to me when they're trying to decide whether to leave and they're
Mm,
really in a miserable situation, but there's so
mm,
much fear. And the greatest fear, I think, is a combination of fear of loneliness. People actually don't mind being lonely, but they're
mm,
scared to death of being lonely, and
mm,
fear of the finances and the
mm-hmm.
financial strain.
Yes.
And when my mother, I don't know what your situation is, but when my mother was divorced, it was a terrible situation. She went from stay home to factory work 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, and we were dirt poor and
Mm,
struggling. So for me, in my divorce, when I knew it was time, that there was no
mm,
other way,
mm.
my greatest fear, even though I had a law degree, which I hadn't used for 10 years, I had education and I
Yeah.
had so much capability and so much passion, but the fear
Mm,
of what if it doesn't work? What if I can't
mm-hmm.
do this? What if I don't? What if I can't support myself and my children, I can't live the way we lived growing up. I can't do that.
Mhm.
So that's maybe an extreme example, maybe not. Maybe it's really common. I think for many of the women who come to me in that place of should I stay or should I go, their biggest question is, how am I going to support myself? We don't live in an era of lifetime alimony anymore. So even if you've been with someone for 25 years, chances are you're going to have to support yourself at some point.
Mhm.
And so I love what you're doing. And I think another thing I hear for people further along in the process or who have finished their divorces, I want to help people through this. I want
Mhm.
to do something. I hear that all the time. And the reason is because until you've been through it, you don't understand the hell it is. In the most amicable divorce, it's still terrible.
Sure.
It's such a traumatic experience, no matter
Yes.
how it goes. And so having a coach, I know probably not every woman you work with is coaching women through divorce. There are other things people are going through where
Sure.
they need a coach and can benefit from it. But I think some of the people that you work with do want to do that because when you get to the other side, life is so good, right? Like,
Yeah.
but it's hard to believe that when you're in it. So, yeah, talk to me about what women come to you feeling and fearing, and are they past the fear and ready to do this, or is there still doubt?
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of a spectrum, right? I think that no matter, I don't care how ready you are. I have a conversation with women every single day once they've made that decision. And to kind of go back to your other statement about like women who come out of divorce wanting to help other women, I would say the majority of women that I work with women in all different niches. And I've got women in the fat loss space that I help. I've got a web designer, I've got photographer, all walks of life in all niches. But I
Mhm.
will say that yes, there is something to be said about coming out of divorce and really, especially if you've gotten, or if you're getting to the other side or you've gotten to the other side of really feeling like, holy hell, I just want to help somebody navigate that. And so that's a huge piece of it. But I think so, even when women have decided that they do want to coach, yes, the imposter syndrome, the fear of vulnerability, the fear of judgment, the fear of, oh my gosh, am I even qualified to coach somebody? How would I even coach somebody? And this is exactly why I created my certification that I'm launching at the end of the month, because there are so many women that have the heart and the desire to coach, but what keeps them paralyzed, it's twofold. It's one, it's the business side of things. And I've got a program,
Mhm.
Renew You, that I coach through the business side of things, but also just the actual how do like the how of coaching, right? How do I hold
Right.
space for somebody? How do I, even coach a session with somebody where I'm not winging it and I know the right questions to ask and I'm not crossing boundaries into like therapy or legal advice, right? It's very
Right.
important for coaches to maintain their integrity and to stay in their lane.
Yep.
And there is a way to do that, but you have to learn how. And so, yeah, I would say that even my coaches that come to me, who or the women that come to me are like, yes, hell yes, I'm all in on coaching. I have yet to talk to one who does not have even a little bit of imposter syndrome, some fear around it, some, the worries, the lack of confidence, all of that.
Yeah.
And what I know to be true from just navigating that myself is the confident, you can't think your way out of being unconfident. Like that just doesn't happen.
Mhm.
How you become
Right.
confident is by having a plan, having a structure, getting the reps in,
Yep.
right? And actually doing the thing. So yeah, I think it's kind of across the board, but they all share that in common. Everybody still has that fear of like, what if this fails? Everything, I think, when you're divorced and you're doing it on your own, even if you have a decent, good co-parenting situation and all of that, everything just feels very high stakes because your time
Yeah.
is very limited. Your time is very limited. Your money is very limited. Your money can be limited, or at least even if you've got a good paying job and all of that, you're still mindful of your resources because you don't
Yeah.
have, that second person constantly being able to get your back there.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, this is why I'm so passionate, and this is about helping specifically divorced women. And this is a very specific niche. This is a
Mhm.
very specific woman that I work with, but I do that because I am that woman. I am a divorced
Mhm.
mom. I know what it's like to be working a full-time job and building out your business at the same time and a
Uh,
lot. Yeah.
it's very heavy. But you sometimes talk about your, like, the what if divorce isn't an ending? And you use different terms, but it's a new beginning, it's a fresh start, it's a revolution. And for me personally, and for many of the women I work with, it's a chance to step into your authenticity and the person that you've always were, that you lost during the
Yeah.
marriage for whatever reason, or during a previous career that didn't fulfill you, whatever it is. So, talk more about that and what you see, the transformation that you see in women, the positive transformation, because so many are afraid of this ending, devastating their life, right?
Mhm.
When you're in it, when you're in the process of the divorce, you can already start the transformation. You can
Yeah.
start preparing to become a coach, and you don't have to hold yourself back or see this as an ending or as something terrible. It really can be an opportunity to reinvent yourself, relaunch, start something that you feel passionate about. So,
Yeah.
what tell me about the transformation that you see in women from when they reach out to you to after you've worked with them?
Yeah, I think that, and going back to what you said about divorce doesn't have to be something terrible. It could be, a way of completely changing your life, or an opportunity to, move back into, or to either rediscover the woman that you were or become the woman you want to be. I think it can be both at the same time. I think you
Mhm.
can honor and acknowledge that it's effing terrible, and that it is traumatic, as we said, and it can be awful and heartbreaking and life changing and all of that. And it also is an incredible opportunity to, like we said earlier, look at your life and say, like, okay, like, what's next, right? And I think the key to that is just surrendering. Is
Mhm.
surrendering to the fact that you're in this place, like it or not, right? You're in this
Yeah.
place now. Now, what are you going to do, right?
Yep.
And so I think that, and I can speak for myself. I know for me, starting my coaching business and really leaning into something that I felt that really lit me up. And if you're listening to this and you have no desire to start a coaching business, you don't have to start a coaching business to change your life, right?
Right.
You could
Right.
The whole point of the coaching business for me was to lean into something that I felt passionate about, that excited me, that
Mhm.
fulfilled me. And so, that was such a catalyst to my personal healing, right? And so,
Right.
if you're listening to this and you're going through a hard time, I don't care what it is that you do, but find something that really brings some joy back to your life. It could be something so small, no joke. In the mornings after you get out of the shower, listen to one of your favorite songs. I know that that sounds so stupid, but like, we've got to be intentional about doing even the smallest things, like FaceTime your mom on a regular basis. Whatever
Right.
this looks like, just think of ways that you can add joy into your life every single day. And so I know for myself and for the women that I work with, who are building their own coaching businesses, that's the huge piece of the transformation, which is, just really, again, being fulfilled and lit up again and finding joy in your
Yeah.
life. The other thing that was really interesting for me is, I mentioned earlier that when I first started on social media, and really I got going, this is right, my company started right, my first company started right before the pandemic hit. I didn't know a pandemic was coming, obviously.
Right.
But I did know that TikTok was just really exploding. And I
Mm.
had no idea what I was doing, but TikTok was definitely like the platform that really catapulted me into my business. And a really funny thing happened though, because as I mentioned earlier, at that point, I had never even taken a damn selfie. I was terrible. I had no, in fact, when I look at my first short form videos, I cringe. Like, it's like, oh my God, I'm just so mortified. But a really cool thing happened is that the more, because I was always so self conscious, really, like, I was
Mhm.
always so critical of myself. Every time I would do a video, I would just pick apart my face, the way I looked, the way I sounded, all the things.
Yep.
But eventually, the more that I did it, the more that I just did video, and I would do a video and I would watch myself back and I'd have to edit it. And day in and day out, I'm doing this. Something really funny happened where I actually started to be able to I started to like myself more, because I started to be
I
able
love
to
that.
look at those videos and almost like watch this girl that I'm looking back at, which is me, and think, you know what? I would be her friend. I like her. She's funny.
I
She's
love that.
funny. She's got something to say. And I slowly but surely, that's how I started to become more confident because I objectively started looking at myself like somebody that I would want to be friends with. And that was incredibly healing for me as well because
Oh,
when I got divorced, and I don't really get into the circumstances of my divorce, but I will just say it left me feeling very, very, very defeated, very low
mm,
self-esteem, just very low. It was the lowest, one of the lowest points in my life.
mm.
And I was able to build myself back up by just learning to like myself again. And that was something that I, never expected. And I also see this with women that I work with, just their confidence start to go up when they realize that they can do it, that
Yeah.
people are like, they're actually helping people and they're feeling good about things. So it was beautiful to watch in myself. And I love watching, my clients go through it as well.
I love that story and it's so relatable for me. I just started this podcast a year ago. And when I first started, I was like, ooh, my voice. And I procrastinated the starting of it, even though I really wanted to do it.
Yeah.
But I quickly was like, oh, I like that. Like it's evolved, right?
Yeah.
Cameras have changed. Like I can make things sound better. But in the beginning, it was scary. I
Yeah.
did put it off longer than I wish I had. But I think that's an important point that you don't have to start with everything when you get started either. Baby steps if you need
Yes.
that, and you're going to evolve. I too started a wellness small business in 2021 before I had decided to go through with the divorce. And I got my health coaching certificate. I did all of those things. Then the divorce started, and then it was a little step back and a lot of healing, a lot of dark space. And, but that's where I found my love for mindfulness, meditation, and thought I couldn't have gotten through this without it. And then things just started evolving. I think the more quiet I got, the more the path to becoming a therapist and becoming a coach was able to evolve and I was able to see that. But for women who are early on in this process and trying to make a decision about what to do next, there's no rush. And your first choice doesn't have to be your forever choice.
Yes.
You can evolve and you will
Yes.
evolve. And I don't know if you know anything about human design, but I'm a
I
manifestor in
do.
human design. And one of the things I've had to accept about myself and love about myself, which I used to hate, is that as my passions change, my ability to inform and what I'm supposed to be informing people of and what I'm doing with my life also needs to change.
Mm.
And it's going to evolve. There's
Mm.
no way it's going to stay the same. It could change every week, it could change every month or every year, but it's
Yeah.
okay. You're
Yeah.
going to find yourself again through all of these processes. Like you said, not just the divorce, but as you become a coach, you learn so much about yourself.
Yeah, for
And
sure.
it feels incredible to be sitting with someone or across in the screen with someone and seeing how much your coaching has an impact on their life. And there
Hmm.
are aha moments, there are big moments, there are little ones, but you watch them evolve. It's incredible. And I think that's what you really teach people to do and what you're going to be teaching people to do in your program that's starting. Am I right?
Yeah. So the
I,
program that's starting, yes, I've got two. My program that's coming up in January is a certification. So it's called the Confident Coach Certification. And this is specifically for the woman who wants to coach, but literally wants to understand and learn a process and a structure for how
mm,
to coach, right?
okay.
So that is the how to coach piece of it, right? So this is, literally like how do you onboard a client? How do you hold a session? How do you stay within your lane? Really, and there's a lot of certifications that teach a lot of theory around coaching, but I
Mm,
think what really builds confidence and really helps you to feel confident and legit and to be clear when you're coaching is also getting in the practice. So this whole certification is based on the learning learning lab. And so we learn, and we also have practice labs where it's so you're getting real time practice coaching other people, with I'm obviously facilitating it. And so this is an 8-week certification to actually learn how to coach. And then I've got the business building side of it, as far as how to grow your business, or how to launch your business, the marketing and the nailing your niche and all the business elements that go along with
Right.
launching a coaching business. That's with Renew You in April. But I actually have a free workshop that's coming up later this month.
Oh,
And this is for the woman who is either coaching now or wants to become a coach. And when she thinks about literally sitting in just an actual session with somebody's paid you to actually coach them, you freak out, right? You're afraid of
mm,
freezing or overstepping or blanking or winging it. And so I am going to be, it's called Coach You, and I'm going to be in this 2-day boot camp teaching you exactly how to lead a session, a coaching session. So you know what not to say, you know what to say, you know what not to say, and you really know how to stop winging it. And
I
that is
love that.
coming up, yeah, January 21st and 22nd. I'm excited about that.
That's great. That's great
Yeah,
because I think so many people probably put off the start of their business because they're afraid of
100%.
what's going to happen. What if something happens I don't expect? What do I do? How do I do the session? Just how do
Yeah,
I show up?
yeah.
What do you think the biggest misconception is among people who are considering this or doing this about using your life experience as a coach? Like, what do you think people get hung up on when they consider that?
There's a few, but I think one of the biggest ones is that they think that they have to have their life completely figured out and everything has to be perfect if they are
Mhm.
going to be a coach. And that is 1000% not true. When people work with coaches, they aren't looking to work with robots. At the end of the day, like, we are
Yeah.
all human. And in fact, part of what makes you relatable as a coach is navigating some of these same experiences that your client is navigating, right? I think the
Yeah.
difference is that, even with coaches, it's, I say all the time, like, it's not that I don't, even if when it comes to anything that I've learned to do, it's not that I don't get triggered anymore. It's not that I don't experience
Right.
these things, or I have just learned how to navigate them better, right? I've learned how
Mhm.
to handle it a little bit different. And so I think what's important is that, to be a coach, you really have to just be a few steps ahead of the person that you're trying to help. You don't
Yeah.
have to be this perfect expert. You don't have to have your life completely figured out. You need to have I think, a repeatable structure and a process that gets people results. And that's with working with a coach, such as, somebody like myself can help you develop that process and fine tune it
Mhm.
and all of that. You don't want to just, start taking people's money and just be winging it, right?
Right.
That's not in, within your integrity. But we do want to, I think, let go of this idea, yeah, that you've got to just have everything figured out. Because at the end of the day, guess what? Like, we're human. You're never going to have it all figured out. Okay.
Yeah.
Even like my business coach, she figures things out. She's still learning and growing. I'm still learning and growing. Right. And
Right.
so what's important though is that again, I'm just leading somebody who's just a few steps behind you. And that's really the key part.
Yeah. Yeah, you do not have to have it all figured out.
Right.
So I have a lot of degrees. So I definitely came from the perfectionist viewpoint in my earlier years
Yeah.
that I needed all the credentials, right?
Mhm.
Like I can't do anything without. But there was safety in that for me from my early childhood trauma. There was safety in education. And I think growing up with a mother who didn't go to school because she got married very young, and it was a Catholic father who didn't want her to work, and then he left her. So I grew up and figured out at 8 years old, oh, education is protection, right?
Yeah.
So I have all these degrees, and my life experience is probably my greatest asset. And in every session, that's what I lean on the most when I'm trying to help people through whether it's a therapy client or a coaching client. It's my own life experience and my own healing process that really makes a difference for them and the way that I guide them through. And so I might have all the credentials, but I'm not sure I need them. And as a matter of fact, my therapist and my divorce attorney during my divorce, I said, I'm going to go ahead and get the MSW. And they were like, you know that you don't need this, right? Like, you do not need
Yes.
that degree.
Yeah.
Now, I value the trauma informed education that I now have, and I'm a little nerdy, so I like the neuroscience. But like I said, at the end of the day, what I learned through my own experience is more valuable than anything else that I have done to prepare myself for what I'm doing now. So I think that's a really important thing for women to understand. And that's really
Yeah.
what you're educating people on and what you're promoting. And I love that.
Yeah,
Uh,
absolutely. And educating people on what does it, because I know you mentioned like your trauma informed education. And this is what I teach my students, especially in the certification, is that yes, there are definitely certain lanes that you want to stay within, right? So, like, what
mhm.
do you in a session? And this is what we're going to be talking about in this free workshop and also what we cover in my certification. It's like when you realize in a session that your client maybe does have some trauma work that needs to be done, what should your next step be? And it's not
Mhm.
if you don't have their credentials and the education to guide them through, healing their trauma, then it's knowing at what point, okay, like, am I referring somebody that to an expert who can, right?
Yes.
And I think that that's a big piece of what keeps a lot of women who want to coach stuck too, is they get nervous, right? And you should,
Yeah.
right? That just means that you
Yes.
care and you want to do it right, right? Again, like, we're not talking about therapy or being a lawyer. They are
Right.
very different roles. And in fact, I think coaches work very well with therapists and lawyers. It can be a great team
Yep.
for you. And so it's just about, if you're wanting to become a coach, it's just about learning, like, what exactly is my role as a coach? Where does it start and where does it stop? And that's
Yes.
exactly what we're going to be talking about in this free workshop.
I love that.
Yeah.
Are you going to be covering marketing and social media marketing and things like that? Because I think that is overwhelming for so many people. Just tackling the social media landscape it's a lot.
Yeah, so not in this particular workshop, because this
Okay.
particular workshop is going to be focusing all on the how,
Okay.
as far as how of coaching, but the social media, the marketing, like what I consider all of that, like the business side of starting a coaching business, that is really where my program Renew You comes in. And so
Okay.
in April, I'll be doing some sort of free workshop related to those types of topics. And I'm probably going to do another one when I wrap up the certification launch, in February, do another like business building, because those are really kind of the two avenues that I focus on, is the actual coaching piece of it and then the business side of it. And of course I work with, clients one-on-one to actually do the
Okay.
business side of it as well.
Do you find people are overwhelmed with social media
Oh
and
yeah.
that part?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
You
it is.
said you had never even taken a selfie when you
Right.
started though,
Yeah.
and you
Never.
figured it out.
Figured it out. I
Okay.
figured it out. Yeah,
Okay.
I learned the platforms. I hired a mentor. I practice a lot, and I just figured it out. Yeah. I mean,
I
that's one
kind
of the
of
things I was just going to say. That's one of the things that nobody really talks about, is that when you decide to become a coach, becoming a coach and coaching is one piece of it. But what
mhm.
a lot of new coaches get a little whiplash once they actually enter into kind of the marketplace, like trying to grow on social media, doing a website. It's not as easy as maybe you may think it is.
Right.
And
Yes.
because what people don't talk about is you basically have to learn an entire new skill set. Basically, you have to learn how to become a digital marketer. You have to learn how
Mhm.
to sell yourself. And these are skills that we are not inherent, right? We have to
No.
learn these skills. So a lot of new coaches, they have the passion and the fire to actually coach, but they have no idea what they're doing when it comes to marketing themselves. And that's the
Right.
part that's where most coaches fail. You could be the
Yeah.
best coach in the world and have all the programs and have all the experience in the world. But at the end of the day, if you don't know how to market and sell yourself, and especially if you want to use the online space to be able to grow your business, you will never be successful. And I don't say that to be, condemning. I say that honestly and truthfully. And I have yet to see a coach or even really any sort of like, a creator in the online space, just, well, I'll take that back. Not any creator in the online space, because influencers, that's a whole other marketing
Right.
lane. But like with coaches, when you're actually using social media to grow your business, I've yet to see somebody do it on their own without getting some
Hmm.
form of support from a mentor. There's just too much to know. I mean, people go to college for 4 years to learn how to be a freaking, a digital
Yeah.
marketer and a marketer and say, I mean, so this is why working with a coach, you get really the crash course, right? You get the cliff
Yeah.
notes, and yeah, yeah,
I'm so glad you brought this up because there's also a plethora of business coaches out there.
yeah,
And so, one thing that I wish a year ago I had known a little better is shop around and find someone who feels authentic and feels like a good connection for you. Because there are a lot of business coaches out there, and you're absolutely right. Like, the greatest challenge I have faced in the past 1 to 2 years of growing my business is learning how to market myself, being comfortable selling.
yeah,
Like, that, it's a whole different skill set. It's, you go to therapy school, you get your coaching training, but selling your business is so, what's the word? I don't know, counterintuitive or something to, I think, a lot of us,
yeah,
and uncomfortable. So having mentors who help you find not just how to sell yourself, but your method, your best way of promoting yourself. Because I joined a program, and that particular program, in the marketing of it, I thought, this is great. This is exactly what I need. And then I joined the program. I paid a lot of money. And as soon as I started digging in, I thought, this doesn't quite feel right. Like, I thought it was me. And then meeting with and talking with some of the other people in the program, we realized this might not, this a specific approach that was being taught might not fit me, right? Like,
yeah,
it's not exactly right for the manifester Pisces therapist in me. And so I learned a lot. I definitely learned a tremendous amount on the business side, and I didn't even know what a funnel was. I had no idea what any of that was. I learned that I do better delegating that type of work, and that I will get stuck in the weeds if I try to do some of that myself. So, even just teaching people how to find the right resources to market themselves and understanding yourself as a coach, as a therapist, as a business person, what are your gifts and what are not your gifts? What are the things that
yeah,
you should invest your time in and the things that you should let someone else do for you? It's huge. In my group of therapy coach friends in my network, so many are like, I wish I would have known to just hire a VA sooner, like a
hmm,
virtual assistant. Like, it's taken so much pressure off to let
hmm.
them do this and not learn this skill set. So, what has your experience been with that for yourself in learning? Like, do you delegate? Are you a delegator? Or you need to do everything yourself? And what do you teach people?
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest. I think for most people who are starting, I want to normalize this. Most people who are starting their business, you're going to be doing everything on your own for a while.
Hmm.
I mean,
Yep.
that really is the truth. Unless you have the resources, the financial resources to hire a VA or hire somebody that you can delegate it to. In the beginning, you are wearing all the hats. I mean,
Yeah.
nobody tells you that you got to be the head of customer service. You got to be, chief marketing officer, chief technology officer, a chief financial officer. Like you, when you start your business, you're doing it all. You are doing
Yeah.
it all. I
Yes.
do think though that sometimes too, though, to your point of like delegating, there does come a point though where you start getting in your own way by continuing to do everything.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of people, they have this fear of spending any money when they're not really making when they're not making a lot of money. But what people, and that's kind of a limiting belief,
Yeah.
because you can hire a VA, even if you hired a VA for like 5 hours a month, which could be, an hour, like an hour and a half a week, just doing some of the tasks that make your freaking eyes bleed, right? Like,
Right.
then what we don't realize is that frees up the mental bandwidth and the
Hmm.
energy for you to pour yourself into the zones of genius that you're really good at. And sometimes making that investment, even though you're not making a ton of money in the beginning, by just, investing a little bit and really outsourcing some of the things that are not your zone of genius, then
Hmm.
you will start to make more money because you're able to focus on the things, and not just focus on the things half-assed, but focus on the things that are, do them with a little bit more energy behind it, right? With a little bit
Yeah.
more intention, because you're not spread so thin. So I do want to recognize that, yes, in the beginning, you are doing a lot of it on your own. I actually think that that's important too, though, because you
Hmm.
learn your business,
Yes.
because there are lots of
Yes.
days where VAs just flake out, where VAs call it, they don't get it done or whatever. You got to know how to do all the parts of your business. But I
Hmm.
think that when you start to realize that you are stretched so thin, that even just bringing in a little bit of help can really turn around your business. So yes, absolutely. I am definitely a delegator for sure. I've got a team that helps me with things, but but that took me a while to get to, I will say
Right.
that. But yeah, it is important to delegate for sure.
Yes. I think that if we were being honest in the beginning with people and saying, okay, you're going to have to do all this a lot, and it's going to be a lot, right? In the beginning, it's going to be a lot, but you are going to get to a point where you're not going to have to do everything, and you
Sure.
will have the resources to hire someone. And by doing that, like you said, you will increase your income. You will bring in more money when you start the delegation process, because then you can show up with your gifts doing whatever it is you're meant to do, if you're meant to coach or podcast or whatever it is. And someone else can do the things that put you in freeze.
Sure. Yes, exactly. Exactly.
I talk a lot with clients, and I am currently coaching some people on how to start podcasts and getting ready to launch a little cohort of therapists in that journey. And a lot of people get frozen or they get in fight or flight. Like their nervous system reacts to either the coaching
Mm.
or the social media, or they shut down. How do you talk to people about getting over the hump when something has them in freeze?
Yeah, I mean, listen, people that work with me know I'm a straight shooter. Like, I don't sugarcoat it, and I'll just say this: well, you got to just put on your big girl pants and get right back to it. Like, I don't
Yeah.
like. There's no, like, yes, okay, acknowledge the fact, and I think it's first and foremost like acknowledging the fact and recognizing, like, okay, like I'm getting some resistance here. Like, where
Hmm.
is this coming from?
Where's
Where
it
is the
coming from?
resistance
Yeah.
coming from? What is the part that and I'm a big believer of like playing out worst case scenario. It's like part of my own like journey when I'm freezing. It's like, okay, what's the worst that can happen here? Right.
Yes.
And so I think number one, it's recognizing where triggering me. Why am I feeling so
Hmm.
much resistance? What's the part of this that feels hard? Like getting to the root of that, thinking about that for a second. We don't just want to always gloss over it. But then, okay, recognizing that and being like, okay, you know what? I give myself some grace. I can understand that, right? What's coming up for me right now is I'm afraid that Susie from high school is going to read this post and think that I'm a total idiot.
Yeah.
And recognizing that and then saying, you know what? F Susie. I don't really care if she thinks that I'm an idiot. I'm just going to do it. Right. And
Yes.
so it's just doing it. So, yes, when I say put your big girl pants on and just do it, that's really because the more you just do it, the quicker all of that will start to go away. But you
Yes.
can't just sit and wallow in it and think your way through it. So, acknowledge it, give yourself some grace, recognize where it's coming from, and then just do the damn thing. Like
Right.
that's
Just
it. Just do it.
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I think
Yeah.
that is so important. And you touched on something I was going to ask about next. I do think people hold back or resist a little bit for fear of what others will think. And there's probably my loudest voice, if I'm being honest, is who do you think you are voice. So you
Mm.
talked about imposter syndrome before. We all have it. I listened to a great podcast with Gabby Bernstein when she was getting ready to release her latest book. And she said the imposter syndrome, I mean, she's huge, right? She's huge. And she was talking about imposter syndrome. And she, before the launch of her book, she was like, kind of, should I be doing this? So it's common, it's something we have to deal with, but the fear of the people we know and what they're going to think is a big block for some people. And the internal voice is, who do you think you are? But there's also a fear of others saying, who does she think she is? She went to law school and then she was doing photography for a while and now she's coaching people and she's a therapist. Like, what? So, is your message to people the same thing? Like, my coach, my very first life coach used to say to me, it's none of your business what people think. And I was like, but I'm worried about it. I don't, I want people to look at me and see competence and be excited for me. And she's like, yeah, but not everyone's going to do that. And so it's none of your business. Do you run into that with people who are like, what is everyone going to think?
Yeah, well, also it's funny you mentioned, God, I was on an interview yesterday and we talked about Gabby Bernstein. This is so funny because talking about imposter syndrome, Gabby Bernstein was my first big guest on my Wellness Revolution
Ah,
podcast, and you
love
talk
that.
about imposter syndrome. I won't get into it now, but there's a really just fun story about how I connected with her personally, and then she came on my show, and it was when she was coming out with the book Happy Days.
Yeah.
And so, was it Happy Days? Is that the name? Yeah, Happy Days. It was the book.
Yep. Yep.
But anyway, so yes, imposter syndrome. But what I'll say about this is that and I think this is a lesson that I've had to learn, and being a therapist, yourself, I know that you will, I'm sure, will agree with this, is that oftentimes when we worry about what other people will think, it's because we think that of ourselves.
Hmm.
It's because
Yes.
that's actually what we think about ourselves. And so we project our insecurities and our inner running dialogue and even our deep subconscious programming. We project that onto others and worry about the narrative we tell ourselves is what are they going to think about us? But we already think that about ourselves. And so I just think that,
Hmm.
and I know for myself, when I start going down, when I even lead with that narrative of like, what is she going to think or what is she saying? I stop it and say to myself, well, why are you saying that? Like, let's talk. And this is the internal dialogue for me is like, okay, well, but what about what about that do you believe to be true? And then starting to separate, okay, well, is that true? Or is this a
Hmm.
story I've created for myself? Right. And so
Hmm.
I think it's really when you start to go down that rabbit hole, it's recognizing that this is a reflection of how you're feeling about yourself and just pausing and digging a little deeper into that. Where does this come from? Why
Yeah.
is that? And I think when you can start to operate from that place, then when those feelings or thoughts or worrying, you start to let that go because you start to let that, but you're not going to be able to let that go until you start to let that go for yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it is so true.
Yeah.
And I think that if we circle back to women going through a divorce, there is a unique situation that they are in where they may have people who have been a big part of their life who are no longer a part of their life. So their ex-husband's friend group or their ex-husband's family. And it's really important, I imagine, the people that you work with, for them to let go of any concern that they might have about what those people think or what they're experiencing, your shift, right?
Yeah, I mean, and I will say this, one of the big concerns that a lot of women come to me, especially if they're wanting to support women like in a divorce journey or dealing with like high conflict exes or like whatever that looks like. One of their biggest concerns is, okay, like how do I share my story though without getting retaliation from my ex,
Mhm.
without hurting my children, without exposing too much. And I can tell you that that is a delicate balance that I'm very
Mhm.
passionate about. There were some pretty heinous things that happened at the end of my marriage that I do not talk about publicly because of protection of my children.
Yep.
And so I'm very passionate about teaching women how to share the parts of their story that feel aligned for them. And I can tell you this, a lot of people think that when you asked me earlier, a misconception, I think this is another huge one. A lot of women think, especially if they want to share their personal story as a part of their coaching message, they think
Yep.
that they've got to kind of air everything out. And if you are actually doing social media with a correct strategy, there's not even enough room in the caption to air your stuff out. Like
Right.
there's so much strategy that goes behind writing a caption, especially if you're using your social media for a business, that
Mm-hmm.
it is that you don't, like I said, like literally you don't even have enough words to write in a caption if you're doing it. Now, if you're just word vomiting, sure, you could say whatever you want, but if you're actually bringing somebody through a journey and doing it strategically with the end goal to hopefully build trust, to possibly get into a conversation with them about working with them, there's not even enough room to air your dirty laundry.
Yeah.
So, there is a way to share your story and do it in a way that feels good and feels aligned without just all the drama. And that's a big thing. And again, this is why I'm so passionate about working with divorced women, because there are a lot of business coaches out there, but I think that unless you've gone through divorce, you really don't understand just the nuances, the sensitivity, I think, of the situation and all the things that single moms who've gone through divorce that they go through, and how that then affects how you show up in business. And I'm sensitive to that, and that's why I serve divorced women.
Yeah. It's so true. It's so
Yeah,
true. And it is a delicate balance. I think even myself, when I was trying to decide, working with women and supporting women going through divorce made sense. I have a law degree. I have a very good understanding. I had my own life experience. I have the trauma background and the therapy background. So it made sense. But that did give me pause. Like, "Ugh, is this niche going to be okay? Am
yeah,
I going to be able to market myself without saying too much?" Because, like you, like I really want to protect my children and my ex-husband from everyone knowing and, understanding everything that we went through. But there are parts of the journey that I do want to share.
yeah,
And so I do sometimes see other divorce coaches and people, I don't know whether you would consider them influencers, people who form divorce communities who air out a lot. And I often think, I don't judge them. I just think, wow, like their circumstance that allows them to do that. And it's a choice. It's definitely a personal choice, but there are ways to protect and to share enough. In one-on-one sessions and in groups, I may be a little more vulnerable and share a little more of what I went through in order to help my clients.
sure.
But on social media, there's definitely a balance that has to take place. It's really
Yeah.
important.
I mean, I think that people can share as much or as little of their story as they want. I think I always, whenever I'm sitting down to write a post or think about it, it's how is what I'm about to write in service of the person I'm trying to serve?
Mm,
And can I get my point across and share with them that I understand where they're at and where they're wanting to go without, is this information, do I need to divulge this? Is this information really relevant, or can I actually leave that out and my story will still be impactful, right? And that's really
mhm.
the lens in which I even write my own content, and when I coach women in building their business and doing their social media and all of that, really what we focus on, and that's the filter that we're using.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
That's great. And I think it's important for people to know they can do whatever makes them feel comfortable. And that's what's going to be the most magnetic for them in attracting the clients that they can best serve.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Authenticity is really everything. I think we live in a world where we think, at least I grew up too, in a generation where we thought we had to be something else.
mm,
But in reality, people are most drawn to you when you're yourself
yeah, yeah,
and when you're sharing what feels good.
yeah.
I love everything you're doing,
Thank you.
and it's just so important and supportive of women that I think both you and I hold dear, close to our hearts. So I'm thankful for your work and
Thank
so
you.
grateful for you being on here and
Thank
sharing
you.
today. This is great. And hopefully people will be able to reach out to you. Your groups are getting ready to start. All that information is going to be attached in the show notes, your
Okay.
contact information. If people want to work with you one-on-one, is it best for them to go to your website?
No, just shoot me a DM. I run my own social
Okay.
media. Don't be surprised if
Okay.
I send you a voice note back. That's typically what I love to do.
Okay.
And so send me a message. I'm MS Amber Shaw, Ms. Amber Shaw on Instagram. Send me a message and let's have a conversation. Would love to just see where you're at and see if I can help.
Wonderful. One
Yeah.
last question. Any message that you have for a woman who's going through her divorce right now and doesn't know exactly what she wants to do, but knows that she wants to serve other women or other people in this world? Like, what's the message you would have for them to give them some inspiration?
I think it starts with really prioritizing, and you mentioned this as a part of your journey, but this is also part of my journey that I think was really important is really prioritizing getting quiet with yourself. I don't care if that looks like 10 minutes in the morning before the mayhem starts with the kids. I don't care if it's right before you go to bed. If you go on a walk, don't listen to a podcast, don't listen to music,
Mm,
literally be with your thoughts. We spend so much time just taking in information all the time. We're constantly scrolling, we're helping our kids, we're, doing our job, all the things. And we very rarely just take a beat and just literally just get quiet with ourselves. So that is, I think, the best place to start. And to your point earlier, Leslie, which you said, where you start. And Leslie and I are perfect examples of where you start, and your journey as an entrepreneur is most likely not where you're going to end up. So
mm,
just start.
yeah.
Just start because you will most likely pivot. And it's an evolution of you. It's an evolution of your brand. It's an evolution of your business. Just all of it. But you just have to start.
Yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. So important, both getting quiet and starting.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you
Welcome.
for being here and sharing all of this. I'm excited for the women who will join you
Thank
and
you.
just so appreciative of all the work that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Leslie. I
All
appreciate that.
righty. Thank you. Everything will be
Thanks.
in the show notes if you want to find Amber. I'll have all those resources listed here in the notes. Everyone, take care, and I'll see you next time.